Hi guys, welcome back to Father and Son Investing. The last video that I did was about Palantir and why I thought investors who were selling might be short-sighted. Today I want to follow up on that opinion. We're going to talk about one quote from their recent third quarter conference call, and this is the quote. This quote comes from the company's chief operating officer, Shyam Sankar. This is what he has to say. And lastly, our work in healthcare is exploding. He does go on to say that the NHS, MD Anderson, 70 academic medical centers, as well as the Department of Veterans Affairs and even more regional U.S. providers are using Foundry to help manage over 300 million patient lives, and that number is growing. Now, many of you have already figured out that I am in the healthcare business. I was previously a family physician in the United States Air Force and eventually transitioned over to radiology within the United States Air Force as well as in the private sector. So I've been in the trenches, so to speak, there, doing the clinical work in family medicine, and now I'm a little bit more of the man behind the curtain doing radiology. In both cases, though, data and information tends to get siloed such that one hand really does not seem to be speaking to the other, and that can dramatically affect patient care as well as research. Now, it's obvious that medical care is big business, at least in the United States it is. In fact, traditionally, it's going to be running 16 to 18% of US GDP, as we can see from this graph here. Translating that over into dollars, and you're looking at more than $3 trillion annually in healthcare. Now, that's just in the United States. Now, of course, the United States spends more money per capita than any other country in the world on healthcare, even though we have the 22nd best life expectancy. That, of course, is a story for another day. But the fact is that healthcare is a huge business throughout the world. I bring that up because if a company can come along which can take this data, this information which is siloed and not available to other members of a healthcare team, and somehow manage to integrate that data so that everyone can learn from the data, that company stands to make a lot of money. And Palantir certainly is one of those companies. Now, this graph here comes from Vincent Ventures from an article in Seeking Alpha, and he uses this just to give us a little bit of a peek into how the healthcare system communicates with each other or runs with each other. The article goes on to note that while the pharmaceutical industry is moderately concentrated, hospitals and hospital systems are highly fragmented. Picture it. In the U.S., we have industry giants such as HCA. We have nonprofit hospital organizations such as Intermountain Healthcare out in the West. Of course, there are academic institutions that operate in a single location for the most part. And he goes on to state that astute readers will note that this means the data infrastructure held by these institutions is also extremely fragmented. This fragmented data can create big problems, particularly when patients are transitioning between healthcare institutions or are utilizing multiple healthcare institutions at the same time. Now, it doesn't just apply to patient care, it also applies to the research that goes into healthcare. Multiple researchers may be working on similar projects at the same time, but because they are not necessarily sharing information, the pace of the research can be dramatically slowed down. Or there may have been a concluded study years ago which was thought to have no useful data within it, but in light of newer research data may provide important clues to disease and the treatment of disease. Now, it's important here to think about structured data and unstructured data. Of course, structured data is just that. It can be displayed in rows and columns and relational databases. We're looking at numbers and dates and strings. It's easier to manage, certainly, with legacy computer systems, and it requires less storage. It's estimated that about 20% of enterprise data is the structured data, meaning that then 80% of the enterprise data, in this case we'll think of it as medical data, can be unstructured data. Unstructured data could be things such as physician notes, patient records, pathology reports, radiology reports. Unstructured data could be emails between collaborators on a research project. Now, this kind of data can't necessarily be displayed in rows and columns in relational databases, and it's going to require more storage. It can also be more difficult to manage and protect with legacy solutions. Now, Palantir is already very accustomed to working with healthcare entities such as the National Health Service in the United Kingdom, the NIH here in the United States, as well as IBM Watson. They recently bought a stake in Cellularity, and drug companies such as Merck. In fact, in their third quarter conference call, they highlighted that they had recently signed a 4-year, $87 million contract with the Department of Veterans Affairs. That is a department in the United States government that provides medical care to 9 million military veterans. Now, because they are already working with multiple medical entities, they are used to working with government regulation in terms of privacy and protection for this data. Now, there is a great article from Bloomberg Businessweek in 2019, and it talks about a company called BGI. It is a company that operates out of China. Bloomberg spoke with the company's co-founder and chairman, Wang Jin, and he had this to say, quote, "Nowadays, medicine mostly comes from the Industrial Revolution. It's physical, it's chemical. Kill the tumor, poison the tumor, burn the tumor." Of course, the article goes on to highlight the field of genomics and how that will become the way that medicine is done in the future. In fact, Wang says we go back to real biology. Instead of the Industrial Revolution, we're looking at a more scientific revolution based upon genomics. Now, why am I bringing this up? Because BGI and China have a big head start when it comes to this. Being behind the power curve here may provide some incentive for the United States government to use Palantir's technology to get caught up, similar to the way that the United States was trying to catch up in the space race back in the 1960s. I want to show you a brief video from the Palantir Healthcon conference that was in 2019 that illustrates how integrating this data is crucial to the future of healthcare.
I'd like to welcome you all to Palantir Healthcon 2019.
Data science by definition is collaborative.
Our journey is far from complete, and I don't think we'll ever truly be done.
And what can get us there is collaboration.
The truth is that AI is quite fragile. Human intelligence is more special than people think.
Everyone here today has illustrated the vast amounts of data that are being collected in the health sector. We start to triangulate those various data sources to come up with actionable insights.
It's not enough just to collect your data. There's something that's actually kind of human and artistic about this, something that depends on subject matter expertise.
We see a great value in the integration of all these data to solve problems we couldn't solve until we had the tools Palantir is offering.
So I hope this discussion regarding Palantir and healthcare has been informative. Going back to the original thesis, are investors who are selling Palantir shares right now being short-sighted? Will they miss out on a large return on investment if they just hold on for 5 years or more? I think that Palantir saying that their interactions with healthcare entities is exploding should give some pause to investors whether they should be selling now or not. I know I'm a buyer. I am hoping to buy more in the near future, so I would love to see the price continue to come down just a little bit. If this information was informative, please give us a thumbs up, and we'd love to have you as a subscriber. Please share this information with a young person in your life. Make investing a family affair. Man, it can be really fun to have financial and investing conversations with young people. And until next time, enjoy your investing.